Her father left her in the desert, a broken chair for legs, a canteen just out of reach. Why would a man abandon his own daughter? And why was the only rider who stopped an Apache who saw what no one else did, that she was worth saving? The canteen touched her lips before she could ask twice. The Apache tipped it just enough for 3 swallows, then pulled it back. "Slow," he said, eyes already on the single trail of hoofprints heading west. Her voice cracked. "You saw him?" He nodded once. He didn't look back. Another rider emerged from the dusk, younger, scanning the horizon with a bow in hand. "Dust," he murmured. The Apache's jaw tightened. "More than one." "2!" The girl's stomach knotted. "He's coming back." The older rider glanced at her, then to his companion. "Not for you. Not alone." They slid a strap under her chair and lifted, moving toward a rise of black rock. Each step was measured to her breath. The younger rider moved ahead, checking the ground. "Why help me?" she asked. The Apache kept his eyes forward. "Because you asked for water, and because he meant you for the buzzards." They were halfway up the rise when the younger froze, hand raised. Hoofbeats again, closer now, faster. The Apache set her down gently, hand going to the knife at his belt. His gaze fixed on the ridge, where the first rider was cresting. It was her father. And the man beside him carried a rifle across the saddle. Her father reined in hard, dust and anger spilling off the ridge. The man beside him, coat torn, rifle easy across the saddle, studied the 2 riders with Eliza like he was pricing mules. "Move away from my girl," the father barked. His voice tried to sound like law and came out like fear. The Apache didn't step back. "Your trail said you were done being a father." "She's mine," the man snapped. "And that's my chair." Eliza's fingers tightened on the strap. "You left me." He didn't look at her. "You slowed us?" The rifleman smiled thinly. "Evening." His eyes skipped over the bow, the knife, the horse paint. "You folks lost?" The younger Apache angled left, opening space, eyes on the rifleman's hands. The older kept his body between Eliza and both men. "You don't come closer." "Or what?" the father said, sliding a hand toward his holster. "How you'll steal what's mine?" Eliza's voice was flat. "You sold me once." The rifleman chuckled. "Sold, traded, words of fancy hats." He nodded at Eliza's chair. "Man's got to balance accounts." The Apache's jaw worked once. "Accounts don't breathe." Wind struck the ridge and carried off the heat. The father took a step, eyes flicking to the strap under Eliza's chair, to the canteen now in her lap instead of the dust. Something like shame crossed his face, then hardened into something easier. "Get up," he said. "We're leaving." "She can't walk," the rifleman said, almost amused. "That's the point." The older Apache tipped his chin toward the west trail. "You came back because you needed to prove you could." "Because I can," the father snapped. "Then prove it," the Apache said quietly. "Leave." The rifleman's smile cooled. "I hear you speak for her now." "She speaks for herself," the younger said. "You just don't listen." Eliza swallowed. "Why did you come back?" The father finally looked at her. "Because men talk. Because shame sticks. Because the ranch needs a story that isn't you." The rifleman lifted the barrel a finger's width. "And because there's a buyer in town who likes to fix broken things, pays cash for pity." The older Apache's eyes never left the rifle. "You'll lower that." "Sure," the rifleman said, and didn't. The younger drew an arrow halfway, shoulder low, not a threat, an answer. The father saw it and hesitated. He hadn't planned on archers. He hadn't planned on Eliza having anyone. "Pa," Eliza said, voice steady now, "you put the canteen where I couldn't reach." He flinched. "I left water." "You left a lesson," she said. "That's not the same." Silence sharpened. The rifleman shifted in the saddle, bored of talk. "We're going to cut this short." "Don't," the older said. "Not here." "Here's good," the rifleman said, and the barrel climbed that last inch that turns talking into dying. The younger's arrow snapped free, fast as breath. It hit the rifle's front sight and shaved past, the shot cracking wild into sky. Horses screamed. Eliza clenched the strap and the older Apache was already moving, one hand yanking the chair behind a black rock, the other lifting, palm up, hold, at the younger. "Enough!" the father yelled, white around the mouth. "Put the bow down." "You first," the younger said, knocking again. The rifleman steadied, laughed once, and pointed his barrel not at the Apache, not at Daniel. No Daniel here, at Eliza. He wanted leverage, not blood. "You want a choice," he said to the older Apache. "Choose fast." The older lifted his knife, low and close. "I choose her." Hoofbeats, faint, to the south, not theirs. The rifleman heard it too. His eyes cut that way and came back meaner. "Friends? People who stop when they hear a child," the older said. Eliza's voice shook now only with anger. "I'm not a child," the father spat. "You're a debt." "Then pay it," the younger said, "with your back turned." The wind shifted. The smell of creosote rode in. So did 3 riders from the south lip, faces shadowed, horses at an easy lope that said they weren't worried who watched. The first raised a hand, 2 fingers, not a greeting, counting. The rifleman didn't love math when it wasn't his. "This is getting crowded," the older Apache called without looking. "We don't want your fight." The newcomer's voice was calm. "Then finish it quick." The father made his choice, the wrong one. He kicked his horse hard and reached for the canteen on Eliza's lap, as if taking back water might take back the story. The older Apache stepped in, not slashing, just breaking the reach, hand snapping the man's wrist away. The horse skittered. The father swore and grabbed for reins, off balance. The rifleman went for the meaner path. He swung the barrel down toward the chair's wheel and fired. Wood burst. Iron ring jumped. The plank jolted. Eliza hissed through her teeth. The younger Apache's second arrow drove through the rifleman's sleeve and pinned fabric to cantle. Not flesh, not mercy. Message. "Next is bone," he said. The rifleman looked down at the fletching like it was a joke he hadn't heard before. He broke the shaft off and smiled anyway. "You don't have enough arrows." "Don't need them," the older said, stepping closer. The father saw where this was headed and tried a different story. "She's better with me. I know her needs." Eliza said, "My need was water." The riders on the south lip dismounted together, not rushing, not slow. One took the reins of the father's horse like it had always been his. Another stood beside the older Apache, shoulder to shoulder. The third looked at Eliza, nodded once, saw her, not the chair. "Choice," the first newcomer said to Eliza. "Say it and we'll make it true." Her father barked a laugh that didn't have air in it. "She'll choose blood." Eliza held the older Apache's gaze. "I choose the ones who stopped." The father went pale, then red. "You ungrateful." "Leave," the older said, and there was iron under it now. The rifleman weighed 3 bows, 2 knives, 3 horses, and a girl who wasn't alone anymore. He showed teeth. "We'll come back with paper." "Bring sky with it," the younger said. "Paper burns." The rifleman's eyes promised time. He wheeled his horse. The father lingered a half-breath too long, looking at Eliza like she'd stolen something he'd already thrown away. Then he followed. Silence didn't trust them. Not yet. The older Apache crouched by the wheel, touched the split rim. "We can mend it for tonight," he said, "but it won't carry you far." Eliza exhaled. "How far do I need to go?" "Far enough to be someone else," the newcomer said. The younger pulled a spare rawhide loop from his pouch. "We'll lash a drag," he said. 2 poles, a crossbar, smoother on sand. "A travois," Eliza said, surprising herself with the word. "I read it once." The older looked at her. "Reading's walking with your head. We'll teach your hands." They moved fast. 2 straight mesquite poles, a crosspiece, straps. The chair became a platform. The platform became a path. The newcomers checked the southern sky again. Empty for now. Not later. "Where are we going?" Eliza asked. "Water," the older said, "and people who won't sell you." The youngest shouldered the bow and offered Eliza a length of leather. "Hold this. You tell the pace." She took it. The line tugged. The travois slid. The night held. Halfway down the wash, a thin whistle drifted from the west. The rifleman, calling someone or daring the dark to answer. It did. 1 whistle, then 2. Echoes. The older Apache didn't look back. "He'll bring more," he said. "He'll bring a reason." Eliza kept the strap tight and her voice tighter. "So will we." They rounded the last of the black rock, and the wash opened into a shallow basin. A low fire kindled there. Stones, careful hands, a pot that smelled like beans and smoke. Women rose from the shadows, quiet and sure. One stepped forward with a blanket already open. She wrapped Eliza without asking, like finishing a sentence. "Eat," she said, "then talk." Eliza looked from the faces to the flames, to the travois that had carried her out of one story and into another. "I will," she said. "But first, help me learn to move." The older Apache nodded. "We start now." From the west, a coyote called. From the south, hooves again, faint as a rumor. The night leaned in, listening for what the girl would say next. They fed her slow, small spoonfuls, pauses between. Heat moved back into her fingers. The woman who'd wrapped her blanket, grey braid, steady eyes, watched Eliza's face more than the bowl. "Pain?" she asked. "Mostly when I breathe with my back," Eliza said. "Good," the woman replied. "Means you can feel something." She tapped the travois pole. "We fix the rest." The older Apache set a short staff by Eliza's side. "This is yours, not for walking, yet for reach, for turning, for leverage." Eliza ran her palm along the wood. "What's your name?" "Naiche," he said, then motioned to the grey braided woman. "Doste se." The younger archer dropped beside them, rolling out rawhide and cord. "Kaya," he said, tipping 2 fingers in greeting. Eliza nodded to each, storing the names like water. "Thank you." "Don't thank us yet," Dostese said. "Use that staff." "How?" Kaya set a flat stone at her knee. "Flip it without your hands." Eliza eyed the staff, the stone, the way Kaya's mouth dared her. She slid the staff under the stone's edge, levered up, shifted her weight. The stone tipped, skittered, fell flat again. Kaya grinned. Once more, smoother. She tried again, less lift, more slide. The stone obeyed. Naiche watched her wrists. "Good. Now pretend the stone is a canteen 3 inches too far." Eliza's breath hitched. She pushed the staff, hooked the imagined handle, drew it in. Memory turned into practice. Something unclenched. Dostese moved behind Eliza's chair. "Now you turn without dragging skin." She tied a loop to the chair's side and passed it forward. "Pull with this. Push with the staff. Slow." Eliza pulled. The chair turned in a tight arc instead of grinding. She smiled without meaning to. Naiche nodded once. "You lead your body now, not the ground." From the basin edge, a low whistle, not alarm, question. A woman answered with 2 short notes. "Safe, for now." Kaya glanced west. "They're stirring already." "Let them," Dostese said. "We have work." Naiche set 3 stones at different distances. Reach each without leaving the blanket. "Count your breaths out loud." Eliza lifted the staff of 1, 2. By the 3rd stone, her forearms trembled. She gritted her teeth and finished the pull. Kaya passed a water skin. "Sip." Eliza swallowed, then whispered, "How long to learn all this?" Dostese spread her hands. "We've taught babies and old men. The rule is the same. You learn until the world stops laughing." Kaya's mouth twitched. "And then you keep learning." Boot scuffs at the basin rim. 2 more riders dropped in, scouts. One spoke in a low rush. Naiche listened, face still, then looked at Eliza. "They're gathering in town," he said. "A man with a torn sleeve is showing coin and paper." Eliza pictured the rifleman breaking the arrow shaft. "He said he'd bring paper." Dostese's chin lifted. "Paper burns. People bring buckets." Naiche turned to Kaya. "Bowline north, in the rocks. 2 women with you. If they scout, you count." Kaya palmed 3 arrows and disappeared into brush without a sound. Naiche faced Eliza again. "What do you want to do with this night?" Eliza surprised herself. "Learn to move. Learn to make them sorry." Dostese's eyes warmed. "Good order." They built a small frame on the travois crosspiece, 2 pegs, a strap that could cinch around a forearm. Naiche slid Eliza's right arm in and tightened until it hugged but didn't bite. "Now haul," he said. "Not with hands. With back and shoulder." Eliza leaned, pulled the strap, felt the sled edge creep. She pushed the staff with the left hand to keep the nose straight. The travois slid clean across the sand for the length of a horse. Sweat prickled her forehead. Again, Dostese said softly. By the third pull, her breath was ragged. By the fourth, her elbows shook. 8 pulls later, she lay back, chest heaving, a laugh leaking out with the air. What? Nietzsche asked. I moved the world, she said. Just a piece, but I moved it. They let her rest. Dostese rubbed a salve into the places the straps had kissed too hard. Tomorrow we pad with deer hide, she said. Tonight we learn where it hurts. A thin crack of sound. Kaya's bird call. Nietzsche stood. Riders. 3. North wash. Slow. Dostese doused the small fire with a flat stone. Not water. Smoke died without telling tales. Eliza's fingers tightened on the staff. If it's them, we don't greet them here, Nietzsche said. We greet them where the land speaks for us. He pointed to a matted band of saltbush across the basin. There. Dostese and another woman lifted the travois. Eliza grabbed the strap and set the staff as she'd practiced. Nietzsche murmured, count, 1, 2, pull. The sled slid under the saltbush and vanished into shadow. They settled Eliza so only the staff tip showed, angled to look like a branch. Kaya ghosted back, breath calm. Not them, he said. Town riders, looking for sign, looking for a story. Nietzsche joined him at the rim. The riders' voices carried, tired, wary, a little drunk on the idea of coin. He said the cripples with Indians, one muttered. Let them have her, another said. Less trouble. Not what the paper says, the first replied. Paper says bring the father back with the girl smiling. They laughed at the wrong part. Nietzsche's face stayed carved. We don't shoot men who are still guessing, he said. We let them drown in their own map. Kaya watched until the riders moved on. They'll circle back. Then we won't be here, Dostese said. Eliza rolled the staff between her palms. What happens when they find where we went? Nietzsche looked at her. They won't follow where you'll go next. Where is that? She asked. School, Dostese said, mouth hooked. Not the preacher's kind. Kaya grinned. First lesson, how to make boots lie. They moved before full dark. No fire, no straight lines. Dostese taught Eliza how to hum against her teeth to keep fear from turning her hands dumb. Kaya showed her how to toss a stone behind and to the left, so a listener swore the sound came from the right. At a narrow cut in the wash, Nietzsche stopped. He pulled a coil of line from his belt and tied a knot Eliza didn't know. Then he tossed the loop over a snagged limb and made a handhold at her shoulder height. Pull with this. We climb without feet, he said. Eliza stared up the slope. You expect me to fail the first time, he said, and then the second will surprise you. She set the staff, gripped the rope. Pull, set, breathe, pull again. The sled nose kissed the lip, slipped, nearly took her back down. Dostese braced the crosspiece with her hip. Talk, she said, out loud. I can do this, Eliza panted. You are doing this, Dostese corrected. On the third pull, the sled slid over the lip and rested on level ground. Eliza laughed without sound, then with it. Kaya's head snapped to the west. One whistle, his, 2 answering notes, theirs. Trouble. Faster, Nietzsche said. We take the arroyo. They crossed into a channel cut by spring floods, now dry and whispering with sand. The walls hid their shapes from the stars. Somewhere behind, a horn sounded, short, irritated, the kind a man gives when money is walking away. They've split, Kaya said. Light riders on our sign, heavy riders staying near town. Eliza, Dostese said, you lead the count. Eliza swallowed, then lifted the strap. 1, 2, pull. They moved like a small machine. Staff, strap, breath, staff, strap, breath. The arroyo bent and opened into a pool of shadow deep enough to swallow a wagon. Nietzsche raised a hand. Here. Kaya dropped into the pool first, then Dostese, then the sled. The hollow was roofed by deadfall and roots. From outside, it looked like a tangle of nothing. From inside, it was a room made by flood and luck. Eliza lay back, chest hitching. What do we do if they stop on top of us? Listen, Nietzsche said. Wait. And if they don't leave? She asked. Dostese's eyes were steady in the dark. Then you say who you choose, and we make it true, Voices drifted down, close now, echoing wrong in the arroyo's throat. "Saw drag marks," a rider said. "Fresh," another asked. "Fresh enough to smell." Boots scuffed inches above their heads. Someone kicked at the deadfall. Sticks fell. Dust sprinkled Eliza's cheeks. A hand pushed into the tangle, groping. Kaya's fingers slid a blade into Eliza's palm, small, sharp, simple. He closed her fist around it and squeezed once. The groping hand found the sled's slick edge and tapped twice, uncertain. One rider snorted. "Nothing here, just trash." "Keep moving," another said. "The paper wants a smile by morning." Boots scraped away. Hooves faded. The arroyo breathed again. Eliza let go of the knife and realized her hand wasn't shaking anymore. Nietzsche listened a long moment. "We go when the moon drops," he said. "Then school." "What's the second lesson?" Eliza asked. Dostese smiled in the dark. "How to make a father beg without saying a word." A coyote yipped, "Father now." The arroyo settled like a lung after a long climb. Eliza's grip tightened on the staff, not from fear, but to feel its weight, to know it was hers. From the north, very faint, a single whistle thin as a thread, the rifleman counting his night. Nietzsche's mouth went hard. He found more boots. Eliza took a breath and didn't let it shake. "Then we make them walk where they can't see." And the night, for once, seemed to nod. They waited until the moon tilted west, shadows stretching long enough to swallow them. Nietzsche went first, easing from the arroyo like smoke from a snuffed fire. Kaya followed, scanning each ridge before signaling Dostese to lift the travois. Eliza gripped the strap, the staff braced, and pulled in rhythm with them. The sand was colder now, crisp under the runners. Every few lengths, they froze, ears turned to the wind. Kaya's head shifted toward the north. "Hooves, one rider, fast." Nietzsche's answer was low. "Scouting." "Or bait," Dostese murmured. They cut left into a wash lined with mesquite. The branches clawed at the runners, but also hid their trail. Eliza ducked low, her eyes level with the backs of the horses. The staff tapped against her knee in a steady beat, grounding her breath. The hoofbeats grew, then slowed, as if the rider were circling. Nietzsche raised a hand. "Stop." The group held still, listening. A faint jingle of tack, a cough, then the sound of the horse moving on. Kaya whispered, "Too easy." Nietzsche nodded once. "Which means we keep moving." They pressed on until the wash pinched into a narrow chute. Above, the stars were just slivers between stone. Eliza's hands tingled from the cold wood of the staff, but she didn't loosen her grip. At the far end of the chute, Nietzsche slowed. He crouched, pressing his palm to the sand. "Old tracks," he said. "Cartwheels, deep." "Where to?" Eliza asked. He pointed toward a darker gap in the rocks. "Trading path. Dead town. We can rest there." They moved into the gap, the air turning still, carrying the faint smell of ash long cooled. As the walls fell away, shapes emerged, collapsed adobe, a rusted windmill, a corral gate hanging crooked. Dostese led the travois to a sheltered wall. "Here," she said, "we can see without being seen." Nietzsche slipped away to scout, leaving Kaya at the edge of the ruin. Eliza sat upright on the sled, eyes scanning the open space. It was too quiet. "You've been here before," she said to Dostese. "Long ago," the woman replied, "when there were still doors and voices." "What happened?" "Same thing that happens to everything in the desert. Someone wanted it, then someone else wanted it more." The scrape of boots on stone made Eliza's head snap around. Kaya lifted a finger. "Wait." Two figures emerged from the far side of the ruins, moving low. Not riders. On foot. Kaya drew an arrow but didn't notch it. The figures stepped into the thin moonlight. Two women wrapped in patched blankets, eyes sharp. They moved like they belonged here. One of them spotted Dostese and smiled without warmth. "I heard you were dragging trouble." "Not trouble," Dostese said. "A student." The second woman's gaze landed on Eliza. "She doesn't look like a fighter." "Neither did you," Dostese replied. The first woman's eyes crinkled. "Fair." She stepped closer, crouched beside the travois. "What's your name?" "Eliza." "Then here's your first gift, Eliza." She held out a strip of leather, one end stiffened with resin. It whistles when you swing it fast enough. The sound scares some men more than steel. Eliza turned it in her hands. Why? Because they don't know what comes after the sound. Naiche reappeared, silent as ever. We have to go before dawn. Scouts are using the high pass. The first woman nodded. We'll take the North Arroyo, cuts the time in half if you can hold on. Eliza gripped the strap. I can hold. They moved together, 5 now, slipping out of the dead town like they'd never been there. The North Arroyo was tighter, the turns sharper. Dos Teces' pace was relentless but steady. Halfway through, Kaya froze. Light. A faint glow ahead, around the bend. Voices, muffled by the stone. Naiche signaled low, spread ki flank. Kaya moved right. The 2 women from the ruins slid left. Dos Teces eased the travois against the wall, shadow swallowing Eliza whole. The glow grew brighter, a lantern swinging from a rider's hand. Behind him, another led a pack horse. The rifles slung across their backs told the rest of the story. They weren't looking for water. Naiche stepped out first, blocking the path. Wrong arroyo. The lead rider squinted. You're a long way from your camp. And you're too close to it, Naiche said. The second rider shifted, hand brushing the rifle strap. The lantern light caught his face. Eliza's breath caught. The torn sleeve. The rifleman smiled when he saw her in the shadow. Found you? Kaya's arrow was already drawn. Not tonight. The rifleman laughed. Every night's tonight if you don't sleep. The first rider's hand twitched toward his gun, but Naiche moved before it could clear leather. One step, one swing, the edge of his hand knocking the lantern into the sand. Darkness slammed down. Shouts, hooves scrambling. Kaya's bow twanged. The hiss of an arrow followed by a grunt. Eliza! Dos Teces' voice cut through. Hold! The travois lurched forward as she pulled. The staff braced against the wall to keep balance. Behind them, boots pounded, someone cursing in a low growl. They rounded the bend, the arroyo widening. The women from the ruins slipped in from the sides, herding them toward a narrow split in the wall. This way, one hissed. Eliza ducked instinctively as a shot cracked and splintered rock overhead. Kaya fired back, no hesitation. Naiche brought up the rear, voice calm but edged. Go. Now. The split spat them into open desert, the cold air hitting like water. The stars were higher, the moon lower. They could see for miles and the miles could see them. They'll follow, Eliza said. They'll try, Naiche replied. From behind, the rifleman's voice carried, ugly and certain. You can't run forever, girl. Eliza didn't turn. Then I'll learn to make forever run from me. Naiche's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Lesson 3, he said. We start at dawn, but the sound of pursuit was already building again, and dawn was still a long way off. They reached a low ridge of wind-chewed rock. Naiche halted, eyes on the open flats. We don't outrun horses here, he said. We outsmart riders. Kaya scanned the ground. Trapline. 3, Naiche replied. He pointed with his chin. Choke, noise, panic. Dos Teces was already untying her pouch. Cholla joints. Sharp as law. She shook out spiny segments into a blanket. Eliza frowned. Caltrops? Desert's version, Dos Teces said. Under a skin of sand, hooves learn fast. Kaya jogged off to the choke, where the ridge narrowed into a V. He strung a thin line of rawhide low between 2 mesquite trunks, left enough slack to snap with weight, and tucked brush over it. When it breaks, he called, branches dump. Noise? Eliza asked. Naiche held up a gourd stuffed with pebbles and a strip of tin. Rattle, shine. Horses don't argue with surprises. And panic, she pressed. Dos Teces lifted the leather strip the ruin woman had given. You'll make it sing, she told Eliza. Fast and close to the ear, men remember fear by sound. Eliza swallowed. Me? Naiche didn't soften it. You choose, remember. You said you wanted them sorry. Sorry doesn't grow from hiding. Eliza gripped her staff. Then I learned. They worked in quick, quiet motions. Dos Teces slid cholla pads into shallow scrapes and dusted sand over them with her palm. Kaya laced the rawhide trigger to a bundle of dry limbs perched above the V. Nietzsche wedged the rattle gourd in a nook, where a kicked rock would shake it awake. The two women from the ruins set a mirror-bright shard of lantern glass on a stick at knee height, angled to catch moon. A blink of light would look like a signal where none existed. Eliza watched, mapping each step. "What's mine?" Nietzsche pointed to a low sill of rock near the choke. "There." You show them a little silhouette. One whistle from me and you swing the strip hard. Two whistles and you get down and drag. Kaya's eyes met hers. "If something breaks wrong, I cut it wronger." Eliza nodded once. Understood. They took positions. Kaya melted into the mesquite. Dostese crouched behind the cholla field, a stone in each hand. Nietzsche climbed the ridge to watch the lines like a chessman with breath. The two ruin women set up a second rattle farther right to pull ears away. Silence grew teeth. Hoofbeats. Not many at first, 2, maybe 3, hard and sure. Then more. A staggered drum. Laughter slid on the wind, brittle. The rifleman's voice followed, smug and close. "How you can't hide in flat country." Eliza let the words pass through her. She lifted the leather strip, tested the weight. Her staff sat beside her like a spine. Nietzsche's first whistle cut the air. Eliza snapped the strip sideways, fast. It whistled like a hawk diving. Horses flinched, one skittered, iron ringing against stone. The cholla field sat quiet, waiting. "Left," a rider yelled. A second whistle. Nietzsche again. Eliza dropped flat, dragged with the strap, and the silhouette vanished. A rider spurred straight into the V. His boot hit Kaya's rawhide line, and the mesquite bundle dumped with a crack and a roar. The horse reared, struck back, hooves raking empty air. The rider clung, swore, and fell into the sand on his shoulder. "Hold!" The rifleman barked. He didn't hold. He pushed. Up the center. Two more riders cut to the middle, exactly where the cholla waited. First hoof down, second, then pain, sharp and sudden. One gelding screamed, bucked, and planted its rider in the sand. The other tried to leap and landed worse. Dostese's stones snapped out in 2 clean arcs, smacking wet noses. Fright turned to retreat. "Cowards!" someone shouted. "Smarter than you," Kaya murmured, and put an arrow through a rein. Horse and rider parted. The rifleman kept coming, teeth bared. He had seen too many tricks to break easy. He steered wide of the V, leaned off the saddle, and swapped the rifle to his left hand to clear the path with the barrel. He was aiming for the rock where Eliza had been. Nietzsche's third whistle was not the signal, just a warning. Eliza didn't need it. She had already slid to her second mark, low and out of line. She whipped the leather strip at the rifleman's horse as it threaded through brush. The note cut the air at ear height. The animal swerved and slammed the rifleman's leg against stone. He grunted, lost his seat, and nearly ate sand. Kaya rose, an arrow sighted on the man's boot. "Stay down." The rifleman laughed through pain. "If I do, will you fix my shoe?" "Break your mouth first," Kaya said. A shot cracked from the rear of the pack. Ricochet spat sparks from rock near Nietzsche's shoulder. He didn't duck. He moved 2 steps and vanished behind a thorn tree. Dostese hissed. "3 more keek," she said. "New riders." Eliza's breath sharpened. "Do we run?" Nietzsche's voice came back steady. "We finish." The 2 women from the ruins yanked their second rattle with a boot, and tin flashed. Horse heads snapped toward the fake glint Inda, snorting. Dostese's arm flicked. Another stone at another nose. The line wavered again. The rifleman used that heartbeat. He lunged from the sand, grabbed Eliza's travois strap, and yanked hard. The sled jerked, pulling her half out of cover. His eyes met hers. "Got you." Eliza didn't try to wrestle the strap. She shoved the staff into the strap loop and twisted. The wood jammed, created leverage, and the pull came back into the rifleman's elbow. He startled. His grip loosened. Eliza let the strap snap and stabbed the staff end into the sand to pivot her body back under the sill. Kaya's arrow kissed the ground at the rifleman's knuckles. "Next one goes in." The rifleman's smile thinned but held. "You're teaching her tricks. Good. She'll need them when her father comes with paper." "Paper burns," Dostese shot back. "Not when it's read by men with badges," he said. A horn moaned from the far flats, longer, deeper, not a rider's mouth, the rifleman's head cocked. He grinned. And there's the rest of my argument. Nietzsche's eyes cut toward the sound. Lanterns flicked on in the distance, a string of yellow beads weaving toward the ridge. He did the count in his head. Too many. Kaya swore under his breath. Posse? Dostese's jaw set. With the father. Or worse, Nietzsche said. With a deputy who likes coin. The riders closest to them were shaken but not gone. One had a pistol out now, sweeping for a target. Eliza heard the click and felt her breath want to run. She pinned it with the staff. Nietzsche spoke low enough only they heard. We cut right and vanished through the wash, but we need a minute. Eliza's hand went to the leather strip. I can give you a minute. Dostese's eyes met hers. Your call. Eliza slid the strip between her fingers and pushed herself higher on the sled. The rifleman saw the movement and lifted his pistol. Don't try it, he warned. She snapped the strip across the barrel. The whistle built into a shriek. He flinched. His horse lurched. The shot went wide. Kaya's bow sang. The arrow pinned the pistol by the trigger guard to a dead root. The rifleman stared, almost impressed. Nietzsche barked, Now! They broke as one, Kaya firing 2 more arrows in quick pairs at reins and stirrup leathers, Dostese yanking Eliza's sled into the wash, the ruin women dragging brush to erase tracks. Nietzsche hurled the rattle gourd hard into the pack. It shattered, and the sudden sound drew horses sideways into the cholla skin again. Chaos did the rest. They slid into the wash, cool shadows swallowing them. Hoofbeats thundered past above, chasing ghosts that sounded like more riders than existed. Eliza held the strap and counted. 1, 2, pull. Her voice was steadier than it had any right to be. Kaya dropped in last, breath sharp. They'll smell the trick in minutes. Buy me 2, Nietzsche said. I'll turn them on paper. Eliza frowned. How? With a louder story, he said. He pulled a folded scrap from his pouch, soot-smudged, ink blurred. We write 2. Before Eliza could answer, a new voice boomed across the flats, amplified by the ridge. By order of the deputy and the town court, the girl is to be returned to her father. Her father's voice followed, raw and eager. Eliza, come out. That's the law. The rifleman laughed from the other side of the ridge. Hear that, your lesson's over? Nietzsche's eyes did not leave Eliza's. No, this is the lesson. Lantern light crawled over the lip of the wash, swinging, multiplying, boots scuffed above, more than a dozen. Metal clicked. Paper rustled. Kaya whispered, Too many. Dostese's fingers tightened on the sled. We're not done. A deputy's hat brim appeared over the edge, shadowing a face that hadn't slept. He held a folded document in one hand and a shotgun in the other. Behind him, crowded men with badges, men with debts, and a father who'd found a voice. Show yourself, the deputy called, or we break brush and drag you out. Nietzsche rose just enough that the badge could see his eyes. You want her, he said. Come explain the paper to her face. The deputy licked his lips. I don't explain, I enforce. And we don't sell, Dostese said. Silence stretched. The lanterns swayed like slow, patient metronomes. Then, from the far side, another set of lights winked on, cold, steady, in a line. Kaya's whisper cut the dark. That isn't town. Eliza listened, and the hair at her neck lifted. The new lights didn't swing. They advanced in silence, too even, too many. Nietzsche's jaw tightened. He brought more than paper. The cold lights drew closer, revealing shapes not swaying like riders but gliding. Wagons, 4 of them, heavy with canvas tops, wheels wrapped in rawhide to muffle the sound. Between them walked men, not in cowboy hats but brimmed helmets, carrying rifles with the barrels down like they'd come for a siege, not a hunt. Kaya's voice was barely a breath. Army surplus. Not surplus, Nietzsche said. Borrowed from men who think a badge makes them soldiers. The deputy saw the lights and smiled thin. They're with me. Town's security committee. That's just words for hired guns, Dostese said, her tone flat as the ridge. The father stepped forward in the lantern glow, holding the paper high like it could stop bullets. You're done hiding, Eliza. The law says you come with me. Eliza's hand gripped the staff until her knuckles whitened. "The law left me in the desert. That was my choice to make," he snapped. Nietzsche looked past him at the men in helmets. "These aren't here for a family matter. They're here for a message." The deputy's voice carried, too smooth. "The message is order. We don't let folks make up their own rules," Kaya snorted. "As long as the rules are written by whoever pays you." One of the helmeted men banged his rifle butt on a wagon wheel. The sound echoed down the wash, sharp and deliberate. Horses above stamped nervously. Dostese bent toward Eliza's ear. "If they force us out here, we lose ground and surprise. We need them lower." Eliza's eyes flicked to the slope. Loose sand, narrow footing, shadows deep enough to hide a hand. "We make them come down." "How?" Nietzsche's gaze found hers. "You talk to your father." She blinked. "Talk? Loud. Make him think you're ready to yield. He'll push to reach you first. The rest will follow." Eliza swallowed hard. Her voice carried just enough tremor to sound real. "If I come, will you send them away?" The father grinned, thinking victory was in reach. "Once you're with me, there's no need for them." She let her grip on the staff slacken visibly, leaning forward so the lamplight brushed her face. "Then come get me yourself." The father's pride outweighed his caution. He shoved past the deputy, boots scraping the ridge edge. "Move aside," he barked at the men behind him. The deputy lifted a hand. "Hold. We go together." But the father was already picking his way down, lantern lights swinging wild on the slope. Two of the helmeted men followed, rifles up. The sand under their boots hissed down into the wash. Nietzsche's hand made a small circle in the air. Kaya shifted position, bow drawn, but angled low. Dostese loosened a pouch at her belt, pebbles glinting in the dim. The father reached the floor of the wash and stopped just short of Eliza. "See? I came? Now let's go." Eliza's voice hardened. "I asked if you'd send them away. You didn't." He frowned, glancing back at the two riflemen climbing down behind him. "So they're just here to make sure—" The wash exploded with sound, Kaya's bow twanging, Dostese's stones clattering against helmets, Nietzsche's voice cutting through with a command in Apache that made the ruin women drop brush from above. The slope gave way in a controlled slide, dumping sand and thorny branches between the rifleman and the wash floor. The father stumbled, caught himself on the travois frame. Eliza swung the staff low, hooking his ankle just enough to pitch him forward. He hit the sand hard. Wind knocked out of him. One rifleman tried to jump the barrier. Kaya's arrow bit into the ground between his boots, halting him mid-stride. The other swung his rifle toward the sled. Dostese's second stone cracked against the barrel, spinning it away. Nietzsche moved like a shadow, stepping over the father without looking, pressing his own knife lightly against the nearest rifleman's belt to make him freeze. "Drop it." From above, the deputy's voice roared, "Hold your fire!" But the helmeted men at the top didn't all listen. One squeezed a shot into the dark. The round buried itself harmlessly in the sand wall, but the echo rolled like thunder. The horses panicked, shoving against each other. A lantern toppled, spilling fire into dry brush. The glow caught on a wagon cover, flames licking upward fast. "They'll pull back to save the load," Kaya muttered. The deputy barked orders, some men scrambling to smother the fire, others keeping rifles trained on the wash. Nietzsche used the distraction, gesturing for the ruin women to haul the travois deeper along the wash floor. Dostese kept pace beside Eliza, eyes never leaving the rifles above. The father staggered to his knees. "You think you've won, they'll hunt you until—" Eliza cut him off. "Until what? You sell me again." His mouth worked, but no words came. Nietzsche's voice was cold iron. "Take him up. He leaves with them." Two helmeted men, now more focused on the fire than the fight, obeyed when Nietzsche shoved the father toward the slope. The deputy cursed but didn't stop it, too busy keeping order in his own ranks. Within moments, the ridge was theirs again. The fire crackled, lighting the faces above in restless orange. The posse had to choose, chase or control the blaze. The deputy chose the latter. Nietzsche leaned close to Eliza. "We move now, before they remember why they came." They slipped away under the cover of the firelight's confusion. Kaya circling to erase tracks, the ruin women scattering cholla pads behind them. After a mile, the glow faded, Only stars marked the sky again. Eliza exhaled, the staff steady in her grip. That was lesson 4, wasn't it? Nietzsche glanced at her. Which was? Make them step where you want before they know they've moved. His mouth twitched. You're learning. Behind them, faint on the night air, came the frustrated shouts of men trying to count who was missing and realizing one of them was the girl they'd come for. From the west, a single sharp whistle answered. The rifleman's promise. Still chasing the dark. Dostoevsky's eyes narrowed. He's not done. Nietzsche's voice was certain. Neither are we. Vuoi che prosegua subito con sviluppo 6, 800 plus parole, dove il gruppo prepara un'imboscata più grande per chiudere la partita con il rifleman. They didn't stop at the next bend. Nietzsche kept them moving until the arroyo opened into a ribcage of rock, narrow lanes, tight echoes, 3 exits that could look like one if you didn't know where to stare. This is where it ends, he said. Kaya crouched, feeling the ground with his palm. Good bounce. Sound will lie for us. Dostoevsky scanned the walls. And rock will choose sides. Eliza gripped her staff. What do I do? Graduate, Dostoevsky said. Nietzsche pointed to a ledge the height of a horse's shoulder. Up there, your voice, your strip, your timing. Eliza studied the climb. With the rope. Without, he said, you learn to haul yourself. Now learn to hold yourself. Kaya looped the trevors in shadow, piling brush to dull its shape. The 2 women from the ruins fanned out with small bundles, gourds filled with pebbles, tin slivers on sinew, a twist of resin-wrapped cloth as thick as a thumb. What's that? Eliza asked. Poor man's son, one woman said, brief and angry. Nietzsche looked at Eliza. We'll set it behind a rock lip. When you crack it, we get 1 blink of white, enough to steal eyes. Dostoevsky pressed a folded scrap into Eliza's hand. Not paper with ink, cloth, pricked with charcoal marks. Your lines, your cues. If I whistle once, you count to 3 and cry left, twice, right. You choose when to add the scream. Eliza swallowed. Whose scream? Your father's, Dostoevsky said. The one he didn't give you. Kaya slid an arrow across his bowstring, notching without thought. Rifleman will come first, fast. Deputy will come second, loud. The ones with helmets will watch their own boots. Use that. Nietzsche placed stones the size of fists along a seam in the wall. He tapped them. Each gave a different note. If I strike 3, duck. If I strike 2, swing the strip. If I strike 1, he met her eyes. Run. Eliza set the staff against the ledge and pulled. Her shoulders acid-burned from the night's haul, but the muscle answered. On the 3rd heave, she locked her elbow and slid her chest over the lip. She lay there, panting, then rolled into the notch behind the resin twist. From this angle, she could see the arroyo's mouth and the false path Nietzsche had dressed with fresh drag marks. She bit down on the memory of the canteen and let it turn into focus. Kaya whistled, low, short. Riders. Eliza peered over the lip. Lanterns again. Fewer than before, spread wider. The rifleman walked ahead of his horse, hand on the bit, eyes cutting for traps. His sleeve was torn where the arrow had pinned him. He wore that damage like a medal. The deputy trailed, flanked by 2 helmeted men. The father walked between them, not bound but kept close enough to look like bait. His face was raw with sleep and pride. The rifleman stopped, crouched, scooped a handful of sand, sniffed. They're close, deputy. You're sure? Smell the resin, the rifleman said. Old fire, fresh hands. Eliza felt her heart climb into her throat. Dostoevsky's whistle cut once. Eliza counted 1, 2, 3 and called, left. Her voice hit the wall and bounced. It sounded like it came from the opposite side. The deputy jerked his head left. The helmeted men shifted their muzzles. The rifleman didn't move. He stared straight ahead, then up, toward the ledge. He smiled. There you are. Eliza's fingers tightened on the strip. She didn't swing, not yet. Nietzsche's stones chimed 3 in a row. Duck. Eliza flattened as a shot cracked and chewed the lip above her. Rock dust stung her scalp. Kaya's bow answered. A lantern died with a spit and went black. The arroyo dimmed a notch. The deputy swore, "Hold fire! Hold!" The rifleman laughed under his breath. "Now we talk." Nietzsche stepped into view, empty hands open, knife low at his thigh where a man's eyes don't always go. "You brought too many," he said. "And you brought a girl who thinks she's a blade," the rifleman replied. Eliza snapped the strip. The whistle screamed around the walls, a hawk diving in a barrel. Horses danced sideways. The helmeted men flinched. One stumbled and went to a knee. The rifleman barely blinked. "Nice trick. Won't work twice." Dostese's whistle. Twice. Eliza called, "Right." The sound ricocheted. The deputy spun the wrong way. Kaya used the beat to send an arrow into the gravel at a helmeted toe. The man froze, thinking, snake. Nietzsche's stones chimed too, swing. Eliza cracked the strip again, this time aimed at the rifleman's horse's ear. The animal tossed its head and stomped. The bit jerked in the rifleman's hand. He let it go and grinned wider. "Good," he said softly. "You're listening now." He lifted his voice for the deputy. "You want this clean? Fill the arroyo with men. Push forward with shields. We'll take her with the law." "Don't take orders from bounty trash," the deputy snapped. "Then lose," the rifleman replied, eyes never leaving Eliza's notch. Nietzsche's voice cut in mild. "You talk like a man who knows paper." The rifleman's grin thinned. "Paper pays." Nietzsche held up the soot-smudged scrap Eliza had seen earlier. "Paper says the father took coin to abandon a dependent." The deputy's head jerked. "What?" "Signed by the foreman who bought her chair," Nietzsche said. "Signed by the barkeep who watched the canteen drop. Signed by a woman who won't be silent twice." The father's face drained. "Lies." Eliza felt something hot and clean move up her spine. Dostese didn't look at the father. "Speak, Eliza." She found her voice. "You set the canteen where I couldn't reach. You rode away. You came back with a man who trades in broken things, so that's my paper." The deputy hesitated, just a thumb's width, but enough. The rifleman saw it and moved to fill the space. "You going to put a girl's words over a father's? Over mine?" He spread his hands. "I work for the court." "Since when?" Kaya called. "Since the court decided it needed someone who finishes," the rifleman said. Nietzsche's stones chimed once. "Run." He didn't mean flee. He meant start the part that moves everything. Eliza struck the resin twist with the back of her knife and shoved it into the light. The wick screamed to life, short, savage glare. The arroyo whitened. Men threw hands to eyes. Horses lurched. Kaya's arrows flashed into leather straps and reins. Dostese's stones cracked off helmets like hail. Eliza slid to her knees and let her voice break into an ugly sob. "Pa, don't." It wasn't for her father. It was for the deputy's doubt. It landed. He grabbed the father's arm, stopping him from charging the light. "Hold!" the deputy barked again, this time to himself. The rifleman moved in the white like he was born there. He fired blind at the ledge. Chips sang, he rolled, came up behind a slab and let the glare die. "Cute," he said, blinking the afterimage away. "Now it's my turn." He whistled, a pattern no one in the arroyo had heard yet. The answer came from the flats, 3 rapid notes, then a pause, then 3 more. Not the posse, not town, another band. Kaya's jaw tightened. He hired outside. "From where?" Eliza asked. Dostese's mouth was a line. "Men who don't ask questions." Shadows spilled into the mouth of the arroyo, half a dozen, lean and quiet, moving with the confidence of wolves that wore boots. One carried a lariat, another carried a shotgun cut short. The last carried nothing at all and looked the most dangerous. The deputy swore, too late. He hadn't invited them. The rifleman had. Nietzsche didn't step back. He looked up at Eliza and spoke in the same teaching voice he'd used for the staff and the strap. "Last lesson of the night," he said. "You don't win by being the loudest. You win by choosing who hears you." Eliza nodded, throat tight. "Then tell me who." "The one with empty hands," Nietzsche said. "He decides where the others run." The empty-handed man smiled like someone remembering a joke. "She sees." The rifleman pointed at the ledge. "Take her." "Take me instead," a voice shouted, and every head turned. The father had stepped forward, arm ripped from the deputy's grip, face set in a strange, desperate courage. "You want the story? It's me." He pounded his chest. "I left her. Arrest me, charge me, just leave my name on the right side of the paper. The empty-handed man's smile didn't change. Now the stories multiply. He lifted 2 fingers. His men shifted, feet sure, eyes sleepy. Kaya whispered to Eliza, "Say the word." Eliza's mouth was dry. "Which one?" Nietzsche's stones chimed, 2, then 3. Not a code she knew. The empty-handed man took 1 lazy step and vanished behind a slab she hadn't noticed until it moved. Eliza's breath halted. The rock wasn't rock. It was a door. The rifleman laughed softly, delighted. "Welcome to the old river," he said. "It runs under your feet." He raised his hand, and the new men flowed toward the hidden opening like water finally allowed to fall. "Left or right?" Kaya hissed. Eliza stared at the dark mouth in the stone and knew the next choice would decide whose story survived the night. The hollow behind the slab breathed cool, damp air that smelled nothing like the desert above. Old water had carved the tunnel, leaving ribs of stone and slick patches where moss still clung. The empty-handed man slipped inside first, his shoulders brushing the walls, the others falling in behind him without looking back. Nietzsche's eyes never left the opening. "Once they're in, they'll think the ground belongs to them. That's when it doesn't." Kaya frowned. "We've never fought in the river." "Then we make it ours before they know it," Nietzsche said. Dostoevsky scanned the ledges. "It's narrow. Light's in our favor if we keep it at our backs." Eliza gripped her staff. "I can follow." "You'll lead," Nietzsche corrected. "First rule underground. You hear more than you see." "Your ears are younger than mine." Kaya handed her a pebble, smooth and cold. "Drop it when you want me to shoot." The father still stood near the deputy, breathing hard from his outburst. His eyes shifted between the slab and Eliza. "You can't go in there. It's not safe." "Neither is out here," she said flatly. Nietzsche moved to the slab. "Kaya, on her right, Dostoevsky, on her left. I'll cover the rear. Once inside, keep low. Don't chase noise without scent." They slipped in. The air closed around them, thick with silence broken only by the soft scrape of boots on stone. The ceiling dipped, forcing even Eliza to bow her head. Ahead, faint echoes of the new men's passage, soft thuds, an occasional clink of metal. The empty-handed man's footsteps were different, lighter, deliberate, always at the same pace. Nietzsche's whisper barely reached them. "He's measuring." "Measuring what?" Eliza breathed. "Us," Kaya said. The tunnel widened into a chamber where the ceiling arched high enough to swallow a wagon. In the center, a trickle of water slipped from one wall into a pool no bigger than a table. Ripples moved outward from where a boot had disturbed it moments before. Eliza's pulse thudded in her ears. She stepped closer to the pool and held the pebble just above the surface, letting it fall. The sound was small but sharp. Kaya's bowstring whispered. An arrow hissed into the dark. A grunt followed, the scuffle of boots. Then silence again. "One down," Kaya murmured. The empty-handed man's voice floated back, amused. "Your aim's good, archer, but tunnels have more mouths than you have arrows." Nietzsche motioned left. A narrow spur tunnel branched off, just wide enough for 2. "We split. Kaya with Eliza, Dostoevsky with me." Eliza hesitated. "If we split, they'll think we're more than we are," Nietzsche said. "Make them chase shadows until they step where we want." Kaya led her into the spur, the walls close enough to scrape knuckles. The air cooled further, dampness clinging to their skin. Eliza's foot brushed something, a coil of old rope, frayed but solid in the middle. She picked it up. Could trip someone. Better, could hang something heavy above them, Kaya said. He looped it over a jag of stone and tested the drop. A faint whistle from the main tunnel, Nietzsche's signal. 2 short, 1 long. "Move," Kaya said. They crept forward until voices reached them again, closer now. One of the new men came into view, a lariat over his shoulder, eyes scanning the floor. Behind him, the rifleman's silhouette was unmistakable, head tilted like he was already bored. Kaya set the rope's loop at knee height and motioned Eliza back. She positioned herself with the staff ready. The man with the lariat stepped into the loop. Kaya yanked. He went down hard, the rope jerking his legs sideways. Before he could recover, Eliza thrust the staff end into his ribs, forcing the air from his lungs. He wheezed and rolled, grabbing at the wood, but she twisted free. The rifleman didn't even flinch. "Not bad, girl," he said into the dark. "But you still don't know who's writing the story." She met his voice with steel. "Not you." Behind them, a sudden clash, Dostes's stones rattling, Nietzsche's knife ringing off metal. Shouts followed, echoing madly between the walls until they sounded like a dozen fighters instead of 4. The rifleman stepped over his fallen man and advanced. Kaya aimed, but the narrow tunnel made the shot uncertain. The man's smile widened, seeing it. Then Nietzsche's whistle cut through, sharp, urgent. Kaya grabbed Eliza's arm. "Back, now." They retreated into the spur until it bent, hard right. The air here was colder, moving slightly as if another exit was nearby. Eliza's fingers brushed stone, then nothing, an opening low to the ground. She dropped to her knees and peered out. Starlight. "It leads outside," she whispered. "Good," Kaya said. "We make them think we're cornered, then vanish." But before they could slip out, the empty-handed man's voice came again, closer than it should have been. "Leaving so soon." He stood at the mouth of the spur, blocking the tunnel with nothing but his presence. His hands were still empty, but his stance said he didn't need weapons. Kaya's bow came up. "Move." The man smiled lazily. "You'll miss." Eliza tightened her grip on the staff. "Then I won't." He glanced at her, eyes narrowing slightly as if measuring her for something. Then he stepped aside without a word, melting into shadow. Kaya didn't lower the bow until they were outside, the night air cutting the damp from their lungs. They dragged the travois through scrub until they reached a shallow depression hidden from the tunnel's mouth. Nietzsche and Dostese appeared minutes later, moving fast but controlled. "They're still inside," Nietzsche said. "They think you're still with us in there?" "Let them," Kaya replied. Eliza's chest heaved, part fear, part something fiercer. "We can't keep running. We need them to choose a ground that kills their advantage." Nietzsche's eyes met hers. "You have one in mind." She nodded toward the north. "The sinkholes. My father used to warn me about them." Dostese's mouth curved. "Good choice. Ground that remembers every fool who thought it could hold weight." Nietzsche nodded. "Then we guide them there, and you'll lead again." From the tunnel, a faint echo of the rifleman's laugh followed them into the night. It didn't sound worried. It would. They moved under the cover of starlight, the desert air sharp enough to scrape their lungs. Eliza kept the travois steady, angling it around patches of loose rock. The land sloped gently north, toward a dark horizon broken only by low ridges. Somewhere beyond them lay the sinkholes, a place most riders avoided, and for good reason. Kaya walked ahead, scanning for fresh sign. "Tracks split," he murmured. Some went west, some still in the river. Nietzsche studied the prints. "The rifleman's not with the main body. He's hunting the edge." Dostese adjusted the strap on her shoulder. "He'll be the first to smell the trap." "Good," Nietzsche said. "If he turns back, the others follow." Eliza's mind traced the path ahead. She'd seen the sinkholes once from a distance, shallow bowls of dirt that gave way to hidden pits, the ground collapsing under anything heavier than a coyote. Her father had pointed at them and said, "Step wrong and the desert swallows you whole." She hadn't known then that he could mean it for her. By the time they reached the first ridge, the night was thinning toward gray. Nietzsche crouched, tracing a circle in the dirt with his finger. "They'll come from here, winds with us. We'll lay false trails toward the shallows, real trail toward the deep." Kaya grinned. "And when they follow, we let the earth answer," Nietzsche said. The two ruin women unpacked their bundles, more cholla joints, strips of rawhide, and a scattering of tin shards that caught what little light the sky gave. They worked quickly, planting distractions along the false paths. Eliza helped, dragging the travois over patches of firmer sand to press misleading tracks. Dostese handed her a narrow pouch. "Resin dust. Sprinkle it when you pass over rock. It clings to boots, leaves a scent for the dogs they might bring." "They have dogs?" Eliza asked. "They will," Dostese said. Nietzsche's whistle, a short, sharp note, cut through the morning stillness. "Riders," Kaya confirmed, peering back over the ridge. From their vantage, the posse looked smaller now, Lanterns were gone. The sky gave enough light to see by. The deputy rode at the center, the father just behind him, face hard and unreadable. A few helmeted men trailed, but the rifleman was nowhere in sight. "He's already out there," Nietzsche murmured, "looking for a way around." "That's his habit," Kaya said. "Circle wide, cut in from the side. Then we turn his habit into a hole," Nietzsche replied. They split into pairs, Nietzsche and one ruin woman heading east to set the deep trap, Kaya and the other circling west. Dostese stayed with Eliza, guiding the travois to a patch of ground that looked solid but rang hollow underfoot when tapped with a staff. "Here," Dostese said, "this one's ready to fall." Eliza stepped carefully, feeling the faint give beneath the crust. "How deep?" "Deep enough not to climb out without a rope," Dostese said. "And we won't be giving them one." They worked fast, brushing loose sand over the thin crust until it looked no different from the surrounding ground. Then they set a lure, a broken strip of cloth snagged on a mesquite branch, fluttering just enough to catch an eye. By the time Nietzsche returned, the posse had closed half the distance. He scanned the setup once, then nodded. "When they reach the ridge, Eliza, you step into view, just long enough for the right eyes to see." Her pulse quickened. "And if the wrong ones see, then you make them the right ones," Nietzsche said simply. They took their positions, Kaya hidden in the shallows to the west. Nietzsche crouched low east of the deep trap, Dostese just behind Eliza. The ruin women melted into scrub, cholla pads ready. The first riders crested the ridge. The deputy's voice carried, sharp and commanding. "Spread out, she's close." Eliza stepped forward, letting the light catch the edge of her staff. A shout went up. Her father's, "There, by the mesquite." Exactly as planned, the father spurred toward her, two helmeted men on his flank. The rest of the posse fanned out, following the false trails. Eliza stood her ground until the hoofbeats were too loud to ignore. Then she turned, feigning panic, and ran straight across the crust toward the lure. Her father's voice was closer now, triumphant. "Don't let her—" The ground gave way with a sound like tearing cloth. Sand and crust collapsed beneath the led horse, swallowing it to the chest. The rider, one of the helmeted men, was pitched forward, disappearing in a cloud of dust. The second horse balked, rearing violently. Its rider scrambled to stay mounted. Her father's horse skidded, hooves scrambling on the unstable edge. For a moment it looked like he might make it clear, until a hidden cholla pad bit into its flank. The animal shrieked and plunged sideways into the pit, throwing him hard against the wall of the sinkhole. Kaya's arrow hissed in from the west, slicing the strap of a rifle before its owner could aim. Nietzsche's voice rang out from the east. "Pull back! Ground's no friend here." The posse hesitated, some trying to skirt the edge, others shouting for ropes. The deputy barked orders, but the chaos was louder. Eliza moved back toward cover, Dostese at her side. "We can end it here," Eliza said. "Not yet," Dostese replied. The rifleman's still breathing. From the far side of the ridge, a single gunshot cracked, measured, deliberate. A puff of dust rose inches from Eliza's boot. She turned in heart hammering and saw him at last, standing alone on a narrow outcrop, rifle steady, eyes fixed on her through the sights. Kaya's bow came up, but the rifleman shifted just enough to use her father's struggling form as cover. His voice carried, cold and sure. "You step, I shoot, you stop, we talk." Nietzsche's voice cut across the distance, iron and ice. "You don't get both." The rifleman's grin was almost invisible at this range, but she felt it. "We'll see." And from the south, where no one had set a trap, came the unmistakable sound of more riders. Dostese's eyes narrowed. "He's called for a third hand." Eliza gripped her staff. The sinkholes had claimed two men and scattered the posse. But the game wasn't over, and now the board was wider. The southern riders came in a ragged chevron. No lanterns, no badges, dust ghosts with money on their minds. The deputy wheeled and cursed. "Who called them?" The rifleman didn't answer. He didn't need to. His sights never left Eliza. Nietzsche's voice cut flat. "We break their circle, or we drown in it." Kaya nodded. "Take the teeth first." Dostese touched Eliza's shoulder. Your move decides which way the desert tilts. Eliza stepped out from the mesquite, not far, just enough to be seen. She raised the staff chest high and planted it in crust that looked solid and wasn't. "Deputy," she shouted, "do you want a body or a witness?" He flinched, caught between pride and fear. "Stand down." "Say which," she said. "Body or witness?" The rifleman laughed. "She's bartering." "Listening," Eliza said, "and counting." Kaya's arrow snapped the air. It pinned the deputy's hat to a thorn stem. The brim jerked off his head like a confession. Nightshade didn't blink. "Answer her." "Witness," the deputy spat. "Fine. Come in." Eliza shook her head. "Then you tell the posse to pull back 10 horse lengths, and you holster." He hesitated. The southern riders were too close now. A man in a black duster lifted 2 fingers. His line slowed, not out of mercy, out of curiosity. The rifleman's voice drifted like heat. "Deputy, if you give her the ground, you lose the paper." "Shut up," the deputy snapped. Eliza's father clawed at the sinkhole wall, boots scrabbling. He was stuck to the waist. Sand hissed with each lunge. "Eliza, help me." She didn't look at him. "Deputy, 10 lengths." The deputy sliced the air. "Back it up," he barked. "Now." Badges obeyed. Helmets wavered and then yielded. The southern riders held their edges. The rifleman didn't move. Night's chin lifted a hair. "Good. Make him say the rest." Eliza faced the rim. "You want me? Say it clean. Say abandonment is a crime. Say it loud." Silence stretched. The sinkhole creaked like a tired rib. The deputy swallowed. "Abandonment is a crime." "Of who?" Eliza said. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Of a dependent." "Name it," she said. He stared. He knew the trap. He saw it anyway. "Eliza." Her father sagged. The word landed like a stone in his chest. He gasped and grabbed the wall again, eyes wild. "You lying?" The rifleman cut him off with a smile that had no heat. "Lovely. The court will love your chorus," Kaya murmured. "He's not breaking." "Then we take the break from him," Nietzsche said. Eliza lifted the staff and laid it crosswise on the crust at her toes. She slid one hand to the leather strip at her belt. "Rifleman," she called, "you like stories. Here's mine. I choose who hears me." He tipped his head. "Choose." She crack-snapped the strip, not at him. At the ground between them. The whistle sliced the air. Horses sidestepped. Men blinked. Dostese flicked a stone at a tin shard. Sun lashed white. A blink only. Enough to erase aim. Kaya's bow sang twice. One shaft cut the rifleman's sling. The other kissed the outcrop under his boot. "Move," Nietzsche barked. Eliza jumped left. Not far. Just enough to bring the outcrop shadow forward. She drove the staff's tip into a spider crack she'd eyed since dawn. Wood bit grit. The crust hummed. The rifleman felt it. He shifted weight and fired. The round tore dust inches from her arm. She didn't stop. She levered the staff again, lower, meaner. The crack lengthened like a waking snake. The outcrop shuddered. The rifleman's boot slipped. He flung his weight backward. The shelf held, barely. "Cute," he said. "Again." "Gladly," Eliza said. Kaya and Nietzsche moved in the same heartbeat. Kaya lofted an arrow high, not for flesh, for sound. It slapped a dry yucca stalk and made it moan like a steer. Nietzsche hurled the rattle gourd long and low into the southern line. Pebbles screamed in the rawhide belly. 2 horses spun. The chevron broke. Dostese dragged a cholla pad with her heel. She left it where a fast man would step. The rifleman fired at the noise, not at Eliza. Bad aim isn't luck, it's pressure. He corrected fast. She didn't give him the second breath. She jammed the staff deep into the crack and pulled with all the anger the desert had taught her. Something tore under the outcrop. The shelf lurched a handbreadth. The rifleman's stance went from dancer to swimmer. He cursed and threw his rifle to his off shoulder. He leaped for better ground. The ground leaped away. The shelf didn't drop him. It betrayed him slower. Sand sheared. Stone shifted. He rode the slide, one knee plunging. His boot found purchase. He clawed back, grinning through grit. "Almost," Kaya drew. "Finish it." "Not with him," Nietzsche said. "With them," He pointed with his chin at the southern line. The Black Duster leader had edged closer, savoring the chaos. His men watched his shoulders. Eliza saw it. One man with empty hands decides where the herd runs. She had heard the lesson in the river. She spoke to him like a mirror. "You chase coin," she called. "Coin chases paper. Paper says the deputy just named a crime. Your name wants no part of that." He smiled like a cat. "My name has lots of parts." "You like one better than a noose," Eliza said. "Pull back 2 ridges. Let law fight law. Then ride where the noise isn't." The Black Duster's eyes flicked to the deputy, then to the rifleman, then to the ground, muttering under both. He lifted 2 fingers, not forward, back. His men flowed away like water sliding off hot iron. The deputy stared, stunned. "Cowards! Capitalists," Nietzsche murmured. The rifleman laughed, breathless. "You want the field clean. Now it's you and me." "Us," Dostese said. "Don't forget the part where we outnumber you where it matters." The father groaned and slipped another inch. The sinkhole drank him slow. "Eliza, for God's—" She cut him with a look. Not hate, not love. A door closed without noise. The deputy finally holstered, hands spread. "Enough. Lay down your bow. Put down the staff. We end this with a warrant." Nietzsche lifted the soot-smudged scrap. "You already did. You made your statement. You said her name and her crime and his." The deputy flushed. "I said a fact." "You said a confession," Dostese replied. "Yours. You backed a sale with a badge." He faltered. Doubt likes daylight. It was morning. The rifleman didn't allow it. He lunged sideways along the heeling edge of the shelf. He cleared the worst of the crack and came up kneeling, pistol out, eyes cold. Kaya's string snapped. The arrow hit his forearm, not deep, enough to twist the shot. The bullet hit the father's shoulder. Sound went rope tight. The man gasped, eyes blown wide, fingers clawing at sand. Blood darkened his sleeve. The deputy choked on his own order. "Hold your fire." The rifleman's grin went feral. Now she runs to him. Now she chooses. Eliza didn't move toward the pit. She stepped forward into open ground. "I already chose." Nietzsche's nod was almost invisible. "Climax," he breathed. The rifleman's pistol tracked to her chest. "Then finish your lesson." Eliza lifted the strip, slow, letting him see the choice. Not a weapon. A sound. She swung. The whistle sang straight into his ear. He flinched reflexively. Kaya's second arrow took his bootlace and pinned it to grit. His foot stuck half a beat. Half a beat is a lifetime. Nietzsche was already moving. He broke cover and hit the shelf at a sprint no one his age should own. His knife flashed, not for blood, for leverage. He jammed it into a seam and kicked the handle. Stone popped. The shelf tilted one more grudging inch. The rifleman's balance went from art to math. The math said down. He dropped to a knee and caught himself on both hands, gun skittering wide. He laughed once, short and ugly. "Almost," he said again. "Enough almosts," Dostese whispered. The crust under Eliza's staff sighed and began to crack in a long, lazy S toward him. He saw it. He measured distance. He chose. He pushed off the breaking edge and dove, not away from them, toward the old river ridge. "Tunnel!" Kaya snapped. Nietzsche's jaw set. "He wants the dark back." Eliza spun the staff and pointed at the shadow seam in the rock. "Then we take him where the ground listens to us." The deputy stared between Eliza, the bleeding father, and the vanishing gunman. His face finally showed what he had been hiding. Fear. "If he gets underground, I can't help you." Nietzsche didn't look at him. "You never did." Eliza turned to the sinkhole. She met her father's eyes and gave him the smallest nod a human can give. It wasn't mercy. It was closure. "Rope," she said to Dostese. Dostese tossed her a coil. "For him." "For us," Eliza said. "We're going hunting." They ran for the seam as the rifleman slipped into the stone and the desert swallowed his last echo. The tunnel swallowed the light after 3 steps. Cool air pressed in, thick with the smell of wet stone and something older. Metal, maybe. Or the ghost of a campfire that had burned long before any of them were born. Nietzsche's voice came low, steady. He knows these bends. We make him think he's behind us before he is. Kaya loosened an arrow on the string, eyes already adjusting to the gloom. You'll hear him before you see him. Eliza felt the rough hemp of the rope coil against her palm. She tied it around her waist, the rest looped over her shoulder. If he runs deeper, what then? We follow, Dostese said, until the dark gets tired of him. They moved in single file, Nightshade leading, Kaya just behind, Eliza in the middle, Dostese guarding the rear. The tunnel floor sloped down, slick in places where water had carved shallow grooves. Every sound they made came back to them twice, blurred by the stone. A soft scrape echoed ahead, too soft for boots. The rifleman was skimming the wall, letting the rock carry his sound somewhere else. Nightshade stopped, crouched, pressed his palm to the floor, his head tilted. He's right of the main line. There's a side chamber up ahead. He'll wait there. Kaya's voice was barely a breath. Ambush. Nightshade's mouth twitched. Only if we enter first. He pulled something from his belt, a small gourd, no bigger than a fist. Eliza. You still have the resin dust, she nodded, fishing the pouch from her satchel. Good. Sprinkle it on the floor just before the chamber, light coat, then back away. She moved forward slowly, feeling the air cool further near the opening. The pouch tipped in her fingers, dust falling like ground bone, invisible until it caught the dim reflection of their lantern stub. She stepped back into the line. Nightshade lobbed the gourd into the chamber. It hit stone and split with a muffled pop. Pebbles inside rattled like a dozen boots. The rifleman moved, fast. Boots skidded into the resin dust. He swore, a low, ugly sound, as the grit clung to his soles, stealing traction. Kaya's arrow hissed into the dark, hitting stone with a sharp crack. The sound was enough to push him left, into Nightshade's path. Steel flashed. Not a killing strike. Nightshade's blade sliced the rifleman's belt clean, sending his sidearm and spare cartridges clattering to the floor. The man didn't hesitate. He dove deeper into the chamber, vanishing into shadow. Dostese's voice came calm and sharp. He's trying for the old drop. What's the old drop? Eliza asked, already moving. Kaya answered between breaths. A sink straight into the lower river. No way back up without a ladder. Nightshade didn't speed up. We don't need him to fall in. We just need him to think he made it. The chamber yawned wide, the ceiling vanishing into black. A faint rush of air came from somewhere below, cold and damp. The rifleman's boots scraped in the far corner. Eliza's eyes caught a shimmer on the ground. Water pooled thin over flat rock. She stepped aside, angling toward a rise where the sound of the drop was loudest. Nightshade's hand rose, a signal to freeze. His voice carried just enough to reach the chamber wall. You can keep running or you can keep breathing, not both. The rifleman's laugh was low, but it traveled. You think I haven't been chased before? No, Nightshade said. I think you've never been followed by someone who wants the ground more than you do. The man's boots shifted again, closer to the sound of the drop. Eliza's fingers brushed the rope at her waist. She glanced at Kaya. Ready? He nodded, arrow tipped slightly down. The rifleman stepped into the thin water and his feet shot forward, not from depth, but from the resin dust Eliza had scattered on the way in, now washed here by the slope. He hit the rock hard, sliding toward the drop. His hands slapped the floor, fingers searching for an edge. Eliza was already moving. She braced the rope against her hip and swung the staff low, hooking it under his arm. Got you, she said, not like a savior, like someone setting a snare. He looked up, eyes narrowing. Why? Because I want you to hear me before you fall, she said. Nightshade stepped in, knife ready. You're done. The rifleman's smile came back, thin and defiant. If I'm done, so's your paper. No one else will testify. Eliza leaned closer. You don't know me at all. Kaya's arrow stayed trained on his chest. Rope or river, your choice. The man's gaze shifted to the drop, then back to her. He saw it, she wasn't bluffing, his jaw flexed. Rope. They hauled him to the rise, binding his wrists tight. He didn't fight it, but his eyes kept scanning the chamber, measuring every shadow. Dostese came up last, brushing dust from her palms. Now he walks in daylight, Nightshade nodded, And in front of every badge between here and the courthouse, the rifleman chuckled. Sunlight's fine, paper's fine, but you'll never get me past the southern line. They'll be waiting. Eliza's grip on the staff tightened. Then we'll make them move before we arrive. Nietzsche looked at her, something like approval in his eyes. You have a way. Same as before, she said. Make them hear the wrong thing from the right place. From deeper in the tunnel, a sound rolled up, a deep, slow groan of shifting rock. The rifleman's head turned. Kaya's voice dropped. That's not us. The groan came again, louder, carrying dust with it. Somewhere below, the lower river was moving, and not like water should. Nietzsche's jaw tightened. We leave. Now. They dragged the rifleman toward the main passage. The dust thickened, tasting of old stone and something sharp. Eliza glanced back once, just long enough to see a hairline crack in the far wall open a fraction wider. Move! Nietzsche ordered again, voice like steel. Whatever the desert had hidden down here, it was waking, and they didn't want to be here when it decided who could leave. The tunnel began to breathe, a slow inhale that felt wrong. Dust lifted in veils from unseen shelves. Pebbles ticked across stone like nervous teeth. Nietzsche didn't raise his voice. Single file, fast feet, quiet minds. Kaya tightened his grip on the bound rifleman's elbow. If you stumble, I let gravity teach you. The rifleman's smile was tired now. You won't. You need me alive. Eliza moved in the middle again, rope coiled across her chest, staff tapping the wall in a patient metronome. Dostese covered the rear, eyes sweeping every seam for the first hint of betrayals with weight. A fresh crack popped behind them, air pushed forward, colder. Eliza, Nietzsche said, count your breaths. 1, she exhaled slow. 2. They reached a dogleg where the ceiling lowered. Nietzsche crouched, pressed his palm to the floor. The rock hummed under his skin like a drum with a hand above it. We can't go back the way we came. Cave in? Kaya asked. Soon, Nietzsche said. We're between the old river and the new. We take the high seam. The high seam was a scar along the right wall, a ledge no wider than a boot, with 2 places where the stone flared outward just enough to hide a body and a sin. Nietzsche pointed. Eliza first. Your balance is clean. She stepped up without looking down. The staff became a 3rd leg. Her shoulder brushed wet limestone. Her breath went thin at the edges, but the count stayed steady. Kaya shoved the rifleman toward the seam. Up. The man tested the lip with his toe and laughed once. You sure? Up, Kaya repeated. He went. Halfway across, the tunnel heaved. A boom rolled up from the dark, not like a fall, like a sigh through a broken jaw. The ledge quivered. Eliza pinned the staff and let the motion pass through her knees. Behind her, the rifleman's boot slipped a finger's width. Kaya's hand closed around the collar of his coat. Don't test me, he said. They cleared the seam into a shallow alcove where the roof arched higher. The air smelled older still. Metal, yes, but also smoke long gone. Dostese ran a hand along the roof and whispered, Fire scars. Miners, Nietzsche said. Before this was a story. After they left, River took it back. The rifleman leaned against the wall and finally stopped pretending he wasn't winded. So what's the plan? Drag me to town while the ground chews the map. Eliza turned to him. Plan is the same as the lesson. Choose who hears you. He smirked. I'm all ears. Not you, she said. Them. She jerked her chin toward the world above. We need the deputy to save himself out loud. Then the south line will ride the other way. Then we walk in through the front with 1 man and a story sharper than his gun. Nietzsche nodded once. We make a stampede without hooves. Kaya slid a hand into his satchel and pulled out 2 flattened tins, a handful of pebbles and 3 slivers of mirror. Rattle, flash, echo. Dostese added a twist of resin cloth. Blink, she said. 1 more. Eliza took the rope from her waist and tied 3 small knots near the end, spacing them with the care of someone sewing her own shirt. When I swing this down the vent, it'll sing. Vent? The rifleman asked. Nietzsche pointed up. A crack split the roof where smoke stains grew thickest. Old shaft. It meets the desert 100 paces east of the sinkholes. Deputy's line will be there, Kaya said. Counting losses and pride. Eliza fed the knotted rope through the crack until the line tugged on open air. Wind licked the cord and made it hum faintly. She met Nietzsche's eyes. On your strike. Nietzsche knelt and set 3 stones in a small triangle. He tapped one. Positions. Kaya climbed onto the left spur of the arch, balanced on the edges like a cat in a prayer book. Dostese crouched by the vent with the resin twist cupped in her palms. Eliza braced her feet, staff wedged, rope tight through her fingers. Nietzsche tapped the second stone. Hear them. Faint. But there, muffled voices above, the deputy's bark, the clink of a canteen, a horse blowing hard through its nose. The South Rider's silence had moved away as she'd hoped. 2 helmets scraped together. Paper crackled. Nietzsche tapped the third stone. Speak! Eliza snapped her wrist and sent the rope singing through the vent. The 3 knots beat wind in uneven time, a broken cry that sounded too human for rope. Kaya shook the tin gourd. Pebbles rattled like distant boots. Dostese struck the resin and let a single white glare spit up the shaft, not long enough to show faces, just long enough to make a man think lightning had found a badge. Above, chaos. The deputy's voice jumped. Back! The pit's shifting. Pull the line! The scramble of men and gear followed. Boots slid. A horse screamed and then calmed. Kaya let the rattle die. Dostese smothered the blink. Eliza eased the rope to silence. They waited. Nietzsche's palm touched the floor again. The hum slackened a breath. The river below retreated, insulted by something it couldn't swallow. Eliza inhaled once, twice. We go, she said. They moved beneath the vent, bearing right toward a gentler rise Nietzsche swore by, and a quarrel with daylight. The tunnel narrowed again, squeezed them shoulder to wall. The bound rifleman scuffed his heel and caught the rope with his boot, trying for a tangle. Dostese's foot tapped his ankle hard. Don't! He didn't try again. The light ahead was not sunrise. It was desert reflected down a thin throat of rock, bright enough to blind for an instant, then kind enough to paint edges. Nietzsche lifted a hand. Wait. He sniffed the air and smiled without teeth. Creosote. We're near the flats east of the ridge. Close to town, Kaya said. Close enough to make noise that looks like law, Eliza answered. They emerged into a shallow bowl studded with sage and one scraggly mesquite that had refused to die. The sky was iron blue, the sun still low enough to throw long shadows that could hide a body if the body listened. Nietzsche scanned. Deputy's line is southwest, still shaking. The father's in rope, most likely. The rifleman's friends, gone, the rifleman said, oddly honest. They don't work for pride. Good, Dostese said. Pride is expensive. We spend their money. They crossed the bowl, moving fast but low, until a low rise broke the world into 2 halves, the sinkhole plain behind and a sketched silhouette of town ahead, the windmill, the church spire that had outlived the preacher, the square where a paper could cut a throat quieter than a knife. Plan, Kaya said. Eliza touched the rope knots. We split. Kaya, you take him. She jerked her chin at the rifleman. Around the long side with Nietzsche. Dostese and I walk straight in through Maine with the story and the signatures. We call the deputy to the steps in front of everyone. We make him say again what he said over the pit. Then he either arrests the man who sold me or shows his badge is for rent. Nietzsche waded a breath and nodded. Crowder's armor. Sound as witness. The rifleman chuckled. You think the square will choose you over me? Eliza looked toward town, jaw steady. No, I think the square will choose the easiest thing that saves itself. Today, that's the truth. A far rumble drifted over the flats. Not stone, not a posse. Wagons. The security committee's canvas tops, coming late to something they shouldn't finish. Kaya set his jaw. We don't get a second try. Then the first one lands, Nietzsche said. Move. They split. Kaya dragged the rifleman toward the shadow edge of the basin with Nietzsche pacing like a thought at his shoulder. Dostese adjusted her shawl, set the soot-smudged cloth with the names into Eliza's palm, and smoothed the girl's hair with a gesture so brief it could have been a wind. Walk like the ground owes you nothing and you owe it everything, she said. Eliza nodded. They climbed the rise. The town rose fully into view, doors ajar, faces half-formed at windows, a boy sitting on a barrel with a piece of twine and a dream of leaving. Ready? Dostese asked. Eliza gripped her staff. I've been ready since the canteen hit the sand. They stepped into the street, heads turned, a murmur ran ahead of them like shade. The deputy appeared at the far end, hat back on, face arranged into law. Behind him, two helmeted men, and farther back still, the father in a sling, eyes dark with something that might have been shame if it had learned to speak. Eliza raised the cloth. You said, abandonment is a crime of a dependent named Eliza. Her voice didn't shake. Say it where doors can hear. The deputy's mouth opened. The square held its breath. From the corner porch, a slow clap started. Not mockery, not applause. The blacksmith. Then the shopkeeper's wife with the lavender memory. Then the boy on the barrel, palms stinging in a rhythm he'd never forget. Naiche's silhouette appeared at the far alley with Kaya and the bound man. The rifleman lifted his chin and smiled at the gallows he thought he could argue with. Say it, Eliza repeated. The deputy looked from her to the crowd to the rope on the man who had hunted for pay and called it paper. His throat worked. The word rose. And from behind the church, the security wagons rolled in, yellow canvas billowing like a warning no one wrote, their wheels whispering a price the town might still pay. The deputy drew breath. The town leaned forward. The rifleman listened. Naiche's hand touched the knife at his belt like a habit he could break later. Eliza didn't blink. Say it, she said again. The sentence that chose all of them hung on the edge of his tongue as steel rims creaked into the square and the dust came up like a curtain. The wagons rolled in slow, their canvas tops breathing in the breeze like lungs deciding whose air to take. The yellow cloth turned the morning light sickly. Men in mismatched coats jumped down before the wheels had stopped, rifles slung low, eyes already searching for sides to stand on. Naiche's voice carried from the alley, Loke meant for Kaya. They came for the paper, not the man. Kaya nodded once. So we make the paper burn in their hands. In the square, the deputy's gaze darted between the incoming guns and the watching crowd. His throat bobbed again, but no words came. The security men fanned out, boots loud on the packed dirt. The leader, tall Chai, with a scar cutting his jaw in two uneven halves, took in the scene. Eliza holding the soot-smudged cloth like a verdict. The bound rifleman flanked by Naiche and Kaya. The father slumped in a sling. The crowd in that strange balance between fear and hunger for truth. Looks like a town meeting, the scarred man said. Mind if we take the minutes? Eliza didn't lower the cloth. Depends. Do you read names or just prices? A few in the crowd chuckled, short and nervous. The scarred man smiled without humor. Names are for gravestones. Prices are for business. Dostese stepped forward, her voice clear. Then here's your business. This deputy swore before these witnesses that selling a dependent into the desert is a crime. That man, she pointed at the father, did it. That man, she flicked her chin toward the rifleman, was paid to finish it. The names on this cloth signed to that? The scarred man studied her, then the deputy. True? The deputy's mouth opened. His badge gleamed in the light like it wanted to melt. The crowd leaned in. Before he could speak, the rifleman laughed. You really think they care about your cloth? They care about who feeds them next month. Naiche's voice was a blade. Then let them decide if they want to feed on the same ground they'll be buried in. The scarred man's smile thinned. I've heard enough. He lifted a hand. Half his men raised rifles. At Naiche, Kaya, Dostese. Eliza's heart slammed once, then steadied. She took a step forward, cloth high. You shoot them. You kill the only proof you'll ever have that you're on the wrong side. And when this town turns, because it will, your name goes first into the ground. The scarred man tilted his head. You think the ground scares me? No, Eliza said. I think the crowd does. She turned, slow, making sure every face saw hers. You all heard him. Abandonment is a crime. You all saw me in the desert. You all saw them bring me back. Now you decide, what's the price for a badge that sells? The crowd murmured, louder now. The blacksmith's voice cut through. Badge like that can't keep the forge warm, the shopkeeper's wife added, or the shelves stocked. The scarred man's eyes narrowed. Careful. I can still burn this place to the posts. Nietzsche stepped to Eliza's side, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Only if you can light a match with no hands. The scarred man's gaze flicked down. Kaya's arrowhead hovered an inch from his wrist. Behind him, 2 of his own men had gone still, watching the crowd instead of the targets they'd been given. The deputy finally spoke, his voice thin but audible. It's true, I said it, I'll say it again. Abandonment is a crime, and the girl's name is Eliza. The square exhaled. The scarred man's jaw tightened. He lowered his hand. The rifles followed. Fine, he said. She's yours, but the man with the rope, he's mine. Eliza's answer was immediate. No. He stands trial with the one who sold me. That's not the deal, the scarred man said. That's the only deal, she replied. The scarred man's smile returned, colder than before. Then maybe we don't have one. From the edge of the crowd, the boy on the barrel shouted, Then maybe you don't have a town. The ripple started there, voices rising, boots shifting, the sound of people who'd been afraid for too long, remembering how noise felt in their mouths. The scarred man looked around and saw the line tipping, not toward him. He spat in the dust. Keep them, but if they walk out of here breathing, it's on you. Nietzsche's voice was quiet enough for only Eliza to hear. It always was. The security men backed toward their wagons. The scarred man's eyes locked on Eliza until the yellow canvas swallowed him. The crowd didn't cheer. They watched, making sure the retreat was real. When the last wheel creaked out of sight, the deputy stepped forward. He looked at Eliza like he'd aged a decade in a morning. You've got your proof. What now? Eliza held the cloth out to him. Now you put it where paper can't be bought. He took it, glancing once at the names, then folded it careful. And them? He nodded at the father and the rifleman. They walk, Eliza said, but not free. The father's voice was hoarse. You think this makes you better than me? No, she said. It makes me different. The rifleman grinned, even bound. You'll see me again. Not if the ground sees you first, Nietzsche said. The deputy gestured to 2 townsmen. Take them to the jail, both of them. As they were led away, the crowd began to disperse, slow, glancing back at Eliza as if making sure she was still there. Dostesay came to stand beside her, the shadow of a smile in her eyes. Lessons over. Eliza looked toward the ridge where the desert began again. No, just this chapter. Nietzsche's gaze followed hers, and the next, she took a long breath. We write it before someone else does. The sun was higher now, cutting sharper lines between light and shadow. The town's noise settled into its usual rhythm, but there was a shift, small, but there. Enough for now. Nietzsche turned to her, one eyebrow raised. You ready to leave? Not yet, she said. I want them to see me walk away. They did, across the square, past the church, toward the road that wound back into the land that had tried to swallow her. This time, she carried it with her. And in the shade of the alley, the black duster rider who had left the fight earlier watched her go, his face unreadable, already weighing which side would be worth his name next time. By the time they reached the edge of town, the air smelled of mesquite and the faint copper tang of the river. The road stretched ahead in a long ribbon of dust, the sun now high enough to bleach the sky pale. Eliza slowed her pace, glancing over her shoulder. The square was shrinking behind them, the figures in it turning back to their work. But she could still feel the eyes that followed. Nietzsche noticed. You walk like you're measuring the ground. I am, she said. First time I crossed it, I didn't think it could hold me. Now I know it can. Dostesay's voice was soft. It's not the ground that changed. Kaya adjusted the strap on his quiver, the bound rifleman's confiscated gear hanging from it now. Town will talk for weeks. Some will call you lucky. Some will call you trouble. Eliza smiled faintly. Both are better than gone. They left the last of the buildings behind. Out here, the wind was freer, carrying the rattle of distant brush and the dry hiss of sand moving against stone. The land opened wide to the basin and the low ridges beyond. Nietzsche kept his eyes on the horizon. Your father will stand trial. The rifleman will bargain for less rope. The deputy will polish his badge and hope no one remembers how close it came to tarnish. Eliza glanced at him. And you? He shrugged. I'll ride where I'm needed. Maybe back to the river. It still owes me a fight. Kaya grinned. And I'll follow because you'll lose that fight without me. Dostese looked at Eliza. And you? Will you stay? The question lingered in the warm air. Eliza let it breathe before answering. I don't know yet. I thought the desert was just a place to survive. Now I see it's also a place to decide. Maybe I want to keep deciding. They walked in silence for a while, the crunch of boots on packed dirt steady and familiar. Ahead, the basin curved toward a scatter of scrub where the ground rose again. Beyond that, the old trail split, one way deeper into Apache country, the other back toward the settlements. Kaya tilted his head toward the fork. 2 roads. Which? Eliza studied them both. The settlement road was straight, predictable, lined with old wagon ruts that had been there longer than most of the people who used them. The other path bent and dipped, disappearing behind low ridges where the air shimmered. She turned to Nietzsche. Where does that one go? Everywhere, he said. If you're patient, nowhere. If you're not. Her fingers tightened on the staff. Then I think I'll try everywhere first. They took the left fork, the sun casting their shadows long across the sand. As they walked, the town became just another shape on the horizon, its edges softening until it was part of the land again. Nietzsche broke the quiet. When the ground swallows a thing, it leaves no trace. But when people do, the wind still finds a way to whisper it. Eliza looked at him. You think they'll forget? No, he said. I think they'll remember different parts. Some will remember the badge, some the rope, some the girl with the staff. Kaya chuckled. And some will remember the deputy's face when the crowd started clapping. Dostese's eyes narrowed against the sun. Memory is its own kind of weapon. Use it right, and you never have to draw steel. Eliza let the words settle. She thought of the boy on the barrel, the blacksmith's slow clap, the way the crowd had leaned forward as if the truth was something they could catch in their hands. She thought of the rifleman's grin, unbroken even in rope, and the father's silence when the dust swallowed him from her sight. By midday, they stopped near a shallow arroyo, the trickle of water at its bottom reflecting the sky in broken shards. They knelt to drink, cupping the coolness in their hands. Kaya sat back, wiping his mouth. Feels different out here now. Because we're not running, Nietzsche said. Eliza glanced toward the horizon. Not yet. But someday, something else will come down that road. Dostese nodded. Then you meet it the same way you met this, standing. The sun shifted, shadows shortening. The desert stretched ahead, its ridges and hollows holding stories they hadn't yet heard. Nietzsche rose, brushing the dust from his hands. We should move. The land's kinder in the morning than it is in the afternoon. They started walking again, their pace easy but sure. The wind moved with them, lifting strands of Eliza's hair, carrying the faint scent of sage. Behind them, the town settled back into its rhythm. But the echo of that morning, of a square full of eyes and a voice that refused to bend, would travel farther than the dust of their steps. Eliza didn't know if she would see the deputy again, or if the scarred man would one day return with a sharper bargain. She didn't know if her father would spend his days behind bars or find a way to slip through the cracks. But she knew the desert had changed her. It had taken her sight of safety and replaced it with something harder, something that could not be sold. As the trail curved between 2 low ridges, Nietzsche slowed just enough to fall in step with her. You've got a choice now, he said, to walk like someone who was saved, or someone who saved herself. She met his gaze. What's the difference? None that matters to the people who'll see you coming, he said, but it matters to you. She smiled, small but certain. Then I'll take the second. They walked on, the desert wide and waiting, and somewhere beyond the next bend, beyond the next horizon, the ground was already listening for the sound of her steps. If this story moved you, remember, truth is only as strong as those who carry it. Subscribe to hear more untold stories like Eliza's, and watch our next video to see how courage can rise from the unlikeliest places.